Lots of clouds, at least there's some sunlight. No rain at least. And what did I read today? How about this one? Usually with good weather, people would go traveling. Some people bring their drones nowadays. And imagine crashing it as a tourist and it being a big deal because it's, I guess, a no-fly zone and all that. This one says, foreign tourists facing fine after crashing drone into Spain's world-famous mosque cathedral in Cordoba. That must be worse in this case too, especially if it's a really notable landmark of sort. According to this too, there was no damage, but I guess they're looking for the person. It says sources from the cathedral told Spanish news agency EFE that the incident took place at around 10 a.m. on Thursday when a security guard noticed that a small drone was lying broken on the ground in a patio de los Naranjons courtyard. The mini aircraft was then passed on to the National Police, who began an investigation into what had happened. They discovered that the drone had crashed into the tower of the structure, but without causing any material damage nor injuring anyone. The pilot of the drone was a foreign tourist who had lost control of the aircraft, and they say flying drones around the mosque cathedral is not permitted. That is something you have to look out for when you're going to different countries. The rules and regulations are so different in so many places. Again, in this situation too, on how it's a really notable landmark, so it's not a good idea. In terms of, I guess, the potential punishment, it says if you're flying it without permission, it can land offenders with financial penalties of anywhere between 60 and 225,000 euros. And this was an interesting read where when I first read the title, I thought they meant a drone with some kind of explosive weapon, for example, but apparently this is a technique to make it go fast, kind of like hypersonic flight modes you see in movies when it comes to aircraft, from what it sounds of it anyways. This one says explosive engine test with drone could propel China to supersonic age. China's first drone to be powered by an engine that uses explosions to propel aircraft to unparalleled speed has made a successful maiden flight at an undisclosed airfield in Gansu province. The FB-1 rotating detonation engine was developed jointly by Chongqing University Industrial Technology Research Institute and thrust-to-weight ratio engine, a Shenzhen-based private company. Images circulating online show the engine ignited and tested during the taxiing phase of the drone, which is about 5 meters long. It is unclear whether the engine continued to operate during the flight. I guess the question is the thing going to blow up or something like that, huh? And some technicalities according to this, it says traditional turbojet engines use fan blades to draw in air, creating significant drag at speeds above Mach 3. The ramjet engine can take the aircraft beyond this limit by using its shape to compress incoming air, but fails to offer better combustion efficiency. The RDE could become an optimal solution. It employs a ring-shaped combustion chamber where controlled explosions generate shock waves that induce complete combustion of fuel and air. The explosion is much more efficient than the turbojet and ramjet engines, giving RDEs the potential to revolutionize supersonic flight while consuming less fuel. And unlike scramjet engines, which generally require speeds above Mach 4 to initiate, the RDE can start at 0 and are easier to maintain. So that's kind of crazy, I guess, being able to just blast off per se at a blink of an eye. At the same time, there is drawbacks because they say you have to design, I guess, the area to withstand this quote explosion as well, which you imagine that initiating this and it blows up the whole aircraft. And this was an interesting read where recently here in Canada they had this controversial online streaming bill, for example, which would regulate a lot of the big companies like a Netflix or even a YouTube in terms of making them more like a traditional, I guess, broadcaster in terms of regulating them. Now the controversy was they're going after regular users, people who just create, for example, content and all that. So that was apparently put aside where they said, okay, only the companies, but I guess now they're actually releasing some bits on what this entails. This one says, CRTC takes major step forward to modernize Canada's broadcasting framework. So they say here, after much discussion, they reached 2 decisions. It says, first, the CRTC is setting out which online streaming services need to provide information about their activities in Canada. Online streaming services that operate in Canada offer broadcasting content and earn $10 million or more in annual revenues will need to complete a registration form by November 28, 2023. Registration collects basic information and is only required once and can be completed in just a few days. Second, the CRTC is setting conditions for online streaming services to operate in Canada. These conditions take effect today and require certain online streaming services to provide the CRTC with information related to their content and subscribership. The decision also requires those services to make content available in a way that is not tied to a specific mobile or internet service. And this part would get you to think. It says, quick facts, social media services must register, however, users do not. Online services that offer podcasts must register. However, individuals who use social media to share podcasts do not. So that's kind of interesting wording there, saying online services that offer podcasts. Is that technically just anyone who sets up, let's just say, some kind of presence online, just talks into it like a quote radio show of sort? Do they have to actually register with this now too? That's kind of interesting, where you would wonder, what are you trying to quote regulate for someone like that? It says online services that only provide video game services or audiobooks do not have to register. A list of registered services will be published on the CRTC's website. I'm not sure how this will help overall. I mean, the pitch before was they're going to promote things like Canadian content and all that, but the sounds of this, it seems like it's going to be more potential oversight, regulations in a way. So who knows? But yeah, the wording is kind of interesting. What would you think about that, especially the podcast part? Alright, see you guys later.